What's up, everybody? Brian Silva, proud to be a PJ. Today I have a combat controller on. His name is Peach. He's going to be talking to you guys about what it's like to be a CCT on multiple deployments through family and through life. So you guys that have any questions that are looking into CCT or trying to distinguish between PJ, CCT, or TACP, hopefully this helps you guys to answer some of those questions. If you guys are interested in PJ or just need some mindset videos, you can check out any of my videos here at the How to Be a PJ YouTube channel, or you can go back to beapj.com and use the Cone Connect, link up with other guys that are getting ready for the pipeline, or just go on there and look up some of the commonly asked questions that I've had. We're going to try and fill in, the CCT portion of the website, just like we have the SR and the PJ going. We're going to try and give as much knowledge on there for you guys as possible. So, that being said, we're going to get straight into it. We're going to bring on Jared Petras here. And again, we've known each other for a long time, so I appreciate him being on. All right, so like I said, I want to thank Jared Petras for coming on here and talking to you guys, talking to me, so we can go and talk about the CCT mission. Because I know a lot of guys have been excited about learning about CCT, and a lot of questions have been going on, especially on his Instagram. If you guys haven't checked him out, Peaches CCT on Instagram. He's got a lot of good stuff and content out there. But again, I want to thank you, Jared, for coming on here and spreading some knowledge. So if you don't mind, just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me. So I'm Jared, or I go by Peaches. I'm a combat controller. I've been doing this for 20 years now. If you negate the pipeline portion, I guess it's probably been 17 years. I went through when it was both PJs and combat controllers going through NDOC. I'm kind of a hybrid because I was right at the shift too. So I did NDOC, but then I also did the new program, which was AST, but now is or AST, Advanced Skills Training, which is now Special Tactics Training Squadron. I've been to Hurlburt Field twice, North Carolina once. I spent 8 years over at Mildenhall in the UK. Yeah. And yeah, where we met. And then did about 5 years at Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas at the weapons school. And then now I'm here in Tampa. I've been here for just over a year now.
Loving that Florida weather.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So we met back in England, like he was saying, and back then I was a brand new PJ, just getting on the teams. England was my first duty station, and I had the experience to be able to go and hang out with these guys because all the PJs were gone at the time. So I remember our first trip, actually my first trip TDY as a PJ, was going out with you guys and going to drop some bombs out there at the ranges over in Nellis, and we rented some Humvees and did some things that were a lot of fun at the time, but and we returned the vehicles in good condition,
Yeah,
no harm, no foul or anything like that, but we definitely had some fun with the Humvees that they rented out to us. So
yeah, well, the fastest cars on the roads are rental cars, so.
Yeah, definitely. So that was my first exposure to Peach, and like I say, he's been doing good things for the career field and special tactics in general since then, and I'm privileged to be able to know him for such a long time. So, and he's going to be able to share this knowledge with you guys. So, without further ado, let's just get into it. So, a lot of guys that are looking at CCT versus PJ, they kind of know a little bit about the PJ mission from like beapj.com and some of the other resources out there. I don't think there's been much firsthand experience about CCT that's been put out there so far. So if you don't mind just kind of going into what the CCT mission is and what you guys do.
Yeah, sure. So we're very similar to PJs in just the way that we are kind of a jack of all trades, master of none, right? So your combat controllers are only, with your exception of a few that are instructors and stuff and in some, obscure places, all CCT or all combat controllers are special operations forces that fall under Special Operations Command. So within that, we specialize in air traffic control services, assault zones, which would be drop zones, helicopter landing zones, and then your dirt landing strips. So we actually go to air traffic control school, and though we are not certified in a tower like your guys in Atlanta Airport or Tampa Airport or something like that, we can still provide those air traffic control services on a dirt strip or even in, closed down airfields, or if we happen to do an airfield seizure, then we'll do it there as well. We also play a bit in the close air support realm with our joint terminal attack controllers qualification. So one of the things that's kind of good for us is that air traffic control background kind of lent its hand really well into the JTAC realm. So we really made a lot of money there, especially when we would attach to SEAL teams or Green Beret teams or even some of our international soft partners. So we made a lot of money in that, in Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and then some of the other ongoing operations since then. We encompass a lot of the core mission sets that SOCOM has put forth, that being directed by Congress in the way of direct action, counterterrorism, unconventional warfare, personnel recovery, along those things, just to mention a few. So, we will, operate and deploy as a task unit, if you will, in terms of we'll deploy as a special tactics team, which is a 9-man team that is comprised of PJs, controllers, TACPs, and special reconnaissance guys, as well as our officers, our special tactics officers, and then our CROs, our combat rescue officers. So we will deploy like that, or we will attach, like I mentioned before, as JTACs. So that's more or less what we do.
All right. So, in summary, what I would say is you can land the planes, establish the LZ for them to get in there, get stationed, and then move forward with whatever teams you are attached to. Call those planes in, come and get them to attack, get the team out while, if you need to, moving on target, doing that kind of stuff. And I think anything that has to do, because I remember also you guys worked in the HEC towers out on bases and stuff like that, so you got plenty of practice. And I'm sure that if there's probably like a shorter bridge if you're looking towards the future of once you get out or whatever, if guys wanted to do that, then it might be something that would be possible. Like we would be paramedics, some guys might have to get a little bit of a bridge or a little bit of training to go work on the outside, but that opportunity would be there for guys that are wondering, like, what do I do after? Because that guys.
There's a lot of opportunities afterwards that are actually not involving air traffic control. We've had some guys go work in FAA towers, but generally, when you compare us to other air traffic controllers, we're not at their level. It's kind of funny too, because my brother is an air traffic controller, and he's phenomenal. Like, he was at Nellis Air Force Base, which was one of the busiest bases for fighters and aircraft in general. And we always would joke about, I would get my butt handed to me if I went into the tower there and tried to work. But if I took him out and put him on a dirt strip with me where it's blacked out and there's comms, there are communication issues with radios and looking through NVGs, that they would struggle. They would kind of be in the same, hurt locker as I would if I were in the tower. So
you don't have that cool screen that has the dots moving around and the flight paths that are showing. You kind of gotta.
Yep, you rely on the non-radar stuff and what he said to you, and hopefully he's where he's supposed to be and stuff like that. And a lot of that really lends its hand whenever we do not just contingency operations, in terms of a deployment, but also in a humanitarian. Our guys recently, like my team did the Puerto Rico mission out there with Hurricane Irma and Maria, if I remember right. We, special tactics, had people in Houston for Hurricane Harvey. We did Katrina in Mississippi and New Orleans. So, and not just that, Japan, when the tsunami hit in Japan, earthquake in Pakistan, and then there's that Thailand cave thing, that we didn't do any airfield stuff there. We were still diving with our PJ counterparts in ST.
Yeah, I think you guys have been in like pretty much all the key roles. I mean, especially not just civilian stuff, but like downrange. Any of those times that there was a PJ attached, usually there's a CCT attached. Like a lot of the raids that have gone down with the high value targets and stuff like that. Not a lot of times that, I mean, heck, like John Chapman, we're just talking about him, how he got his Medal of Honor kind of thing. So,
Yep.
I mean, not a lot of people knew about that until it got upgraded. So now that the publicity is a little bit elevated, I think it's important to highlight the things and the efforts that the guys in the career field have done. So, but I wanted to also go back to talking about TACPs because you're talking about how you were deployed with TACPs, and a lot of guys that are coming in are kind of between CCT and TACP. So, what do you think like are the key differentiations there between you guys and the TACP guys? Just so they can be clear, like I'm looking after one or the other. I just don't know what the difference is because they're both kind of JTACs.
Okay. So disclaimer. Obviously, I'm speaking from a controller point of view. So if there are any TACPs listening, which I'm sure there will be, some of them are my good friends. I do not mean to misspeak, and by no means mean any malice. So, with that said, when I mention controllers are only in the soft career fields, that's true. TACPs, though, or your tactical air control parties, they when they enter, they start off as what's called ROMADs, and it's a radio operator, maintenance, and driver, right? I'm just trying to remember all these acronyms.
Romad, not romance, romads. For you guys
Yeah.
watching out there, because I know you're probably thinking it, but romad.
Well, romance,
I mean, yeah, you never know.
but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't shy away from it. But anyway, so they once they graduate their pipeline, they are not JTAC qualified yet. Now that is supposed to change, and I don't think that change has taken place yet, but they are working that way. So JTAC is a qualification, not a job, which is an important thing to understand because so many people, even including people in the Air Force, actually get that wrong. But so TACPs, they start off as a conventional force under Air Combat Command, or ACC. As they go to support and attach to conventional Army units, whether that's at the division, the brigade, the corps, the company level, and that also depends on whether they go to an airborne unit or an armor unit or a light infantry unit. So they can go to support different, and that also falls into their qualifications on whether or not a guy gets to go to static line school or if he gets to go to free fall school or something like that. So that kind of depends, and they don't necessarily get to manipulate that or influence that. It's kind of where they happen to get assigned. Once they get assigned, then they'll start going through their JTAC or their initial qualification training to become JTAC. From there, that is their primary job, is to provide JTAC services to their bosses, their attached units, still being conventional. At that point, though, if they so wish, they can assess to then go to a special tactics squadron, or they can go to a special mission unit. But they still, either way, they still have to assess. Then they will then become soft, and then, like I mentioned before, how they would be part of a team or a troop, an STT, then they would fall in on that. Whereas we wouldn't just take a guy that was from a conventional Army unit and place him in that STT because we're just doing such large mission sets. Those guys are focusing on large military combat operations, whereas we are, though we can kind of focus on that, we're not great at it. We are focusing on more of the soft core skills. So have I laid that out pretty well, the difference?
Yeah, I think the important thing to emphasize there was working in small teams, because that's what SOF is, working in small teams. And conventional is not a bad term at all, because those guys see lots of action, and I think that a lot of times people misconstrue it as like a not as cool type of term. But those guys that are in the conventional forces, a lot of times they see more combat over their lifespan than some of the soft guys do. They're just always out there doing the same thing. They're doing their patterns and doing their job, and they're focused on that one thing. Whereas special operations guys, you have to be like a jack of all trades, like you were just talking about, and be able to execute missions in different scenarios, which means that you're also a lot of times waiting for a mission to happen. Unlike conventional, where they're just like, all right, we own this sector and we're going to protect it, or go and find this guy, or go and do this. Like, they have missions that conventional Army units have to do. So they're getting lots of experience out there for TACP guys, for sure, and they're still, out there putting their butts on the line and doing what they got to do. So it's not like you're not going to get as much experience or that kind of thing. It's a different kind of experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. And at the end of the day, we are all supporting the mission. Like we are all support. We're all enablers, right? So it just depends on what you want to do. I mean, like it's everybody's out there to do the mission to score a win for the team. It's just a matter of what you want to do. We score W's for the team because we're more focused. Those guys are taking massive slots of land and just owning that battle space.
Exactly. So that's kind of where, I just wanted to emphasize that difference for people that just aren't familiar with kind of how things go downrange and what it looks like, and give credit where credit is due to those guys that are TACPs out there doing their job. So it's just a little different mindset, different type of tactics and stuff. And when they're joined into the SOF community, obviously we welcome anyone with open arms that can do their job and do it well, because we need good teammates that can work on our small teams. So just wanted to get that out there. And so you guys that are interested in whatever career field, just so you guys know, Jared and I love our career fields and everything that it's given to us. And obviously we picked our jobs for different reasons and continued with it, but our objective here is to make sure that you're as well aware of whatever's going on, and make sure that you are as informed as possible so you can pick the right job for you. We don't want guys that are like, man, I really wanted to go CCT, but I kind of stuck with whatever other career field instead. Like, you guys have the information out there, so use it to the best of your ability and make the best decision that you can for yourself, because once you really believe it in the mission, that's when we get the best out of you, and then we have a good teammate. So that being said, let's go into key traits of a controller, and what things that guys should kind of look at, and how it's different than being a PJ, because I've kind of explained being a PJ on some of my other videos. If you guys don't know, just check out beapj.com. You can read up and check out the other videos. But what's the difference that you see?
Well, so common across all, whether it's controllers, PJs, TACPs, special reconnaissance, SEALs, Green Berets, Marine Raiders, is we all love adrenaline, right? We all want to skydive. We all want to dive. We all want to work with, essentially the best people. There's a lot of movies and a lot of shows that really glamorize it, and that's unfortunate because a lot of it is portrayed incorrectly. But it really is knowing the level of guys that you're going to work with, and somebody who's willing to put mission first, put his guys first. We look for problem solvers and critical thinkers, people who are innovators, that if they, take this phone, for example, right? If this phone was a problem, you see this phone differently than I do. right, at the different angle. Somebody that's sitting over here sees it at a different angle too. So they visualize the problem differently. You see it differently. I see it differently because I'm looking at it from down here. If this is a problem, we want a whole bunch of different thinkers being able to look at that and be able to work together to solve that problem using different points of view and different life experiences. So to say that we go after one particular person would be incorrect. I mean, I would be up for coders, that people that know how to code. You know what I mean? It's like we need people that are again, it's jack of all trades, but in order to succeed, everybody's different life experiences and skills only make soft stronger. So I have a different, and
Yeah.
if you want to talk about PJs, I mean, you guys are just weird sometimes because you like your medical stuff. But
Yeah.
if you if you don't like radios, then maybe this is not the job for you either. you
Yeah.
know,
I mean,
you
but
want to go be a PJ.
PJs have better hair also. I mean, let's not leave that part out.
Yeah,
Now,
you
I
guys.
think one of the important things to emphasize, because everyone's going to say, like, oh, you want to save lives or do you want to blow people up? And it's kind of not really that black and white as far as I've seen. Like, obviously, you're going to be learning more medicine, but we teach CCT guys medicine, at least like the basics. Everyone, I mean, I'm sure you've done plenty of IVs, you've done, tourniquets and all that kind of battlefield medicine, because everyone needs to know how to do that. And you guys have taught me how to run my radio, call in ECAS, that kind of stuff, like to the minimum level. At least I can do emergency type of things if there's an emergency. So I think, for CCT guys, it's not like, you want to destroy every single person that you meet and whatever, blow them, see their heads blow up or whatever. You're out there saving lives in a different way, and that way is basically by getting rid of these guys that are trying to kill your friends, you're saving the rest of the guys' lives. So,
Yep.
potentially you guys save a whole lot more people than PJs do, because PJs, we have what we have in our backpack and then we, or pick them up or whatever. But if you get rid of the enemy, then, problem solved. We don't have to do,
And
yeah.
And what's cool about that is, and you covered that pretty well actually, because and other soft components like I mentioned how we attach to other units, SEAL units, Green Berets, and stuff. Like I've experienced that. As soon as we get in a big firefight or something like that, okay, we're immediately firing back, right? But they know that with me and my radios also comes the A10s, the Vipers, the F15s, the B1s, the AC-130s, with all of this firepower so that we can just wreck shop on people. So I mean, I've experienced it where we get in a fight and these guys will no kidding ensure that I am protected. It's not something I'm asking for by any means. I mean, I'm up there getting some, on the 50 cal or on my M4 as well, but they want to make sure that I am protected because though you are trained, or though I also train those guys whenever I get attached to them on how to do ECAS, I mean, if I can get bombs on target in 5 to 10 minutes, that's great. With them, it could take a lot longer, and that potential of more guys dying. So those guys will actually do a very good job of kind of padding you and protecting you, which is kind of a cool feeling.
Yeah. And again, like obviously you're not asking for that protection or anything, but you got to realize that a lot of times your radio is more powerful than a couple bullets, unless the threat's like, obviously right there. But yeah, you have a farther reach than most, like any other weapon that you pretty much have. I mean, as long as you can, even if it's over the horizon or whatever, you have the eyes in the sky that can tell you what's actually going on. So, having that reach is definitely critical when it comes to maneuvering in the battlefield. So
Yep.
awesome. I think that was pretty good. Um, so let's just keep on the operational train here real quick before we switch into the cone zone and go back to training. Uh, so you mentioned kind of deployments and stuff. Is it just as often as because for us, we were doing kind of like, I mean, depending on the unit that you go to, it was like once every 16 to 18 months ish. We're going on a deployment, and then it's 4 or 5 months. So same thing for you guys.
Yeah, the current cycle right now with the current operations that are ongoing is 6 months deployed, and then you're back for 18 months. That's the typical cycle. And while you're back home station, you're training, you're doing your professional development, you're going to shooting schools, you're getting advanced military free fall training or canopy work or diving or getting some survey training. Like there's all these kind of advanced skills, and then you'll also go to schools and you'll learn how to fly a drone or something like that. I mean, sometimes it's kind of obscure, like maybe it's a driving school or a breaching school or something like that.
Yeah, so you're constantly training, just like anyone else that's getting ready to go downrange, and most of the time it's going to be like wherever you're deploying next, specific type of training. If you can do that, it's going to be like a jungle or whatever kind of thing. Hopefully that doesn't come up anytime soon again. But yeah, so wherever you're going is kind of AOR specific in that aspect. But as far as I think we kind of covered a little bit about deployments. You guys get to mostly attach, and then other than if you're not attached to another team, then you deploy as you said SST with a 9-man element that you go to different areas, right?
Yeah, well, it's an STT, Special Tactics Team.
Sorry. Okay, so we covered that. Let's go with let's see, what kind of bases I guess are CCT stationed? Because I don't think there's been a lot of talk about guard units, reserve units. So just real quick, um, first regarding reserve units, and then the rest of the places where you guys can be stationed.
Okay, so we've got two guard units right now. We've got the 123rd that's in Louisville, Kentucky, and that's a full up STS where they have PJs, combat controllers, special reconnaissance, and I believe they've got TACPs there as well, just probably at a limited number. You also have the 125th STS, which is in Portland, Oregon, which is also a full up special tactics unit. In terms of your active duty, though, starting from west to east, you have the 2-2 STS, which is in McCord, or it's Joint Base Lewis McCord now in Tacoma, Washington. Then you have the 2-6 STS, which is in Clovis, New Mexico, or Cannon Air Force Base. Then you have the 23rd STS, which is at Hurlburt Field in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. Then you have 2 units at Pope Army Airfield and North Carolina, or Fayetteville, North Carolina. Overseas, you have the 321st STS, which is at Royal Air Force Mildenhall, United Kingdom in England, or Cambridge, England. Well, not quite Cambridge, but I mean, it's close enough. And then, yeah, good times out there. Yeah. And then you've got the 320th, which is in Japan, Okinawa, Japan. Now you do have your instructor squadrons or instructor detachments that are kind of smattered all across the U.S. I'm kind of in an obscure one right now, being in Tampa. There's places in Hawaii, Germany, and those are kind of 1 or 2 deep. Then you have the instructors that are going to be at North Carolina and Biloxi, Mississippi, and San Antonio, Texas, and Yuma, Arizona at the Free Fall School, or Panama City, Florida for the dive school. So we've got guys, I mean, for a fairly small career field, whether it be CCT, PJ, TACP, Special Reconnaissance, we're casting a wide net. Now, I know PJs have a lot more guard units, but I'm sure you've covered those already.
Yeah, I covered those. You can check them out at beapj.com also. And I think the reason why, obviously we have, just for you guys that are watching, the reason why we have more bases is because the distance that we cover for civilian rescue missions and that kind of thing. That's why PJs have more guard bases, because we can do that kind of stuff. And, controllers, we only need a couple of them to do the mission, so they can, watch the flow of air traffic and stuff. So that's why it's a little bit different, but I just wanted you to cover that just so guys know. And it's the same thing for you guys that are trying to join a CCT guard unit as a PJ. Would for a guard or reserve unit, you have to go contact the unit and then do their selection type of course, get hired on by the unit before you can go in and actually go to ANS. So that's kind of how it rolls for any guard unit and reserve unit, because you're going to be there for potentially a long time and they're going to have to like you. So that's
And
important to note, and it's mostly older dudes too that I've seen that
and,
guard units.
and if you don't have those contacts of the STS guards, I actually have those, so guys can contact me if not. I've already had a couple people on Reddit and Instagram reach out to me because they are only interested in guard, which is perfectly fine because those dudes do some fantastic missions.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we can drop it down here in the comments that are going to be down below this video if guys want to check it out. If you send that stuff to me, and that way they can just scroll down and check it out once they watch the video. All right, so let's switch back. Now we're getting closer to home station. So as far as training goes for CCT, let's just go back to like what you did for training and what you recommend guys do specifically for CCT. I know it's like similar to NS, but let's just go back to what you did first, and then we'll go into things that you think dudes should do.
Well, so this is where I think it's fantastic that this technology exists now, right? Because the service that you're providing to give people just information, and the amount of information that's available now is fantastic. So there's training plans and all that kind of stuff. When I went through, when I came in, I was 17, and I started the pipeline at 17 years old. So there was quite some significant challenges just being 17, emotional challenges or mental challenges, acne, it's growing some peach fuzz on my face. But so I didn't know how to train. I mean, I'd grown up playing soccer, and I was on swim team when I was little, but so I could sprint, but I wasn't fantastic at running long distance. So I knew I had to do that. So I'd go out for 3 or 4 mile runs. I had a pull-up bar in my house growing up, which is probably unusual at the time, but like I would just do that. I wasn't doing pull-ups. I was just doing it to swing on it because I was a damn kid, and then I started doing pull-ups, and I started doing push-ups and sit-ups and stuff. And then I'd make sure that, I already knew how to swim freestyle. So that's all I did. And I didn't know what fins were. I didn't know what a ruck was. I've been hiking and backpacking, but I didn't know what a ruck was. So when somebody hands me, hey, here's your ruck, I'm like, oh, my backpack? Yeah, it's your ruck. Here's the weight that's going to go in it too. And so I had never done that before. Camping with stuff is a little bit different when you're hiking up the mountains and everything. And that stuff is made to be a lot lighter, whereas this stuff is, hey, we are putting as much weight in that thing as we can because we want to see you break.
Yep.
We want to see your breaking point. If I could do it all over again, or knowing what I know now, like if I could go through nothing, I would still do all the strict pull-ups, the push-ups, sit-ups. I would do 2 types of running. I do, your long distance running, and then I would do sprints in terms of track work intervals or endurance sprints. I think I put an endurance sprint workout on my Instagram today. And that I do that once or twice a week, and it'll just help guys get faster, So because I was though I wasn't the slowest, I was like right in the middle or even on the kind of slower side of the middle, but it's fine. I never came close to not meeting the standards, and I would try and get a hold of some fins if I could get some fins that were not insanely expensive, just because as well as I do, as soon as those first couple of swims you have, they hurt your arches and the top of your feet really, really bad. And it's essentially easier to swim with fins, but it's just a different movement. Then I would try and get a ruck, and it could just be a backpack, but then I would throw 45 pounds in it and I would go out for 3 miles. Then maybe I'd go out for 4 miles and 5 miles, and I would try and get an average. Like the slowest pace is supposed to be 15 minutes a mile, right? That is on the slow end. I've never seen a standard that it's 15 minutes. It's always less than that. But if your guys out there, if they're going to shoot for a time, make sure you are under 15 minutes a mile. So that's just so you know where you're at. But you definitely want to be on the left-hand side of 15 minutes. I would do, and this may not be a popular, I would do some kind of CrossFit or functional fitness if money and equipment allows. And it's not because, that's the fad right now, but like they have proven that methodology of working out works. But I think you have to, you've got to build muscle, because what happens, or what I experienced anyway, or what I saw was we'd have a lot of skinny guys show up, right? They were always really fast, but you put them on a pull-up bar or push-up, and as your body gets broken down through the weeks upon weeks of training, and you're missing out on that critical recovery time, their body didn't have kind of the mass to fall back on and rely on. Now, on the flip side of that, the guys that had bodies that we all want to have, right, that had bodies like Adonis, they almost had too much mass, and that whenever it came to a lot of the long workouts, or hey, this is just going to be a grind, you're just going to have to get through it, they would start hitting muscle fatigue sooner, and lactic acid build up, and they would cramp easier. So you got to do what your body says is right. You don't want to be too skinny. You don't want to be too jacked. You just want to be right there in the middle. And if you're trying to gain weight, that's great. Just make sure it's healthy weight. Something else I would work on is I would work on grip strength. You're going to carry jerry cans or gas cans a long way for a long time, or you're going to carry litters with Mr. Hertz, which is a 250-pound, right? He's 250, right?
Yep.
Yeah, 250-pound dummy that's just dead weight. So you're going to have to hold on to that litter for a long time. During A&S, you're going to have to hold on to a pull-up bar, like, just because. Why? I mean, because it's corrective training, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to have to, like, grip strength is huge. So those are the things that I would do if I could go through now.
And I think an important thing, because I always get this question, like, what's the right ruck or whatever, like, I want to train and whatever, like that kind of stuff. There's a list that I put out there just to give you an idea, but I don't really care what you do as far as that. Like Peach said, I had a backpack, just like anything that had just something on it that could hold. I only went up to 45 when I was coming in, but if you guys go up to like 65, it's a slow progression. It's not like, all right, I'm going to get ready, put in 65, and then you're going to freaking break your shins or blow your knee out or whatever. Like, don't be dumb with it. Be smart, make that progression, and think about the things that you're going to do, because your body needs time to adapt.
Right.
And a lot of guys that I saw when I was an instructor, they ended up, just putting on even a 35-pound rucksack for the first time, and they go on a ruck, and the next day their shins are hurting them on the run or whatever. So definitely got to work on that and make sure that you're up to rucking speed. And then with the strength portion, yeah, I totally wholeheartedly believe in that, and that's what I did as part of my routine. I had a Gold Gym or whatever gym membership that I used to also, supplement some kind of strength training and in with my long swims, not just straight up only calisthenics. I think calisthenics is like the base, and once you're strong enough to do like normal past test standards or whatever, which is the baseline, like the bottom of where you want to show up, you never want to show up just barely passing the pass.
Right.
But once you get calisthenically, like, you can get to that point and like, I'm passing the pass. All right, it's time to start throwing on weights. It's time to start, going longer distances, because your body's mostly adapted to, the things that you're going to be tested on. So you can throw on more weights and you can do more stuff. So I think it's important, especially when you get into training for A&S type of things, for sure. And yeah, this is out there for you guys, so no excuses. you guys have to use this knowledge and actually train, show up ready. Don't expect anybody to, tell you exactly what you have to do and then expect to be ready 8 weeks later or even after basic training. Don't expect that to be a huge boost. That should just be like little tweaks, not gigantic, monumentous tweaks in whatever you're doing. You should
And
be 90% there. Good.
yeah, and two things on that. One is I had a guy on Instagram that I'm talking to right now that he wants to be at grad standards before he enters into ANS. I mean, but so he's not going to even enter the program or talk to anybody until he's at grad standards. I'm encouraging him to go now, just at least be at the standards and not just at the standards, like be able to surpass standards. You don't need to be at grad standards because what's going to happen is as your body's going through all this, like I mentioned, with all the lack of recovery, your body's just going to get broken down. And though you're able to pass it at the beginning, if you're just peaking as you're going in, you could potentially start to dwindle down.
Yeah.
I would come in and I would also say for guys that are training to the minimums, or maybe they go, hey, I'm able to get 15 pull-ups right off the bat. But what I've had happen is that as I test somebody in a pass test, as they were doing their training, they would only do one event at a time. They would go, okay, I did pull-ups, I did push-ups, I did sit-ups. All different days are never back to back. The way the pass test is designed is to fatigue your body as it's going through the test so that, these movements build upon each other. So it's made to, if you're just meeting the minimums on all of them and you haven't done a complete pass test, you're not going to make it.
Yeah. So this is what I say on the getting grad standards thing. I think if you can show up at grad standards, then by all means show up, but don't keep on pushing your line back. You're like, oh well, I've been doing this for 19 months now, but I'm gonna keep on going until I'm at grad standards. Like, there comes a point where you have to like cut it off and be like, hey, this is how much time I'm giving myself, and then do it. Because a lot of guys, even the ones that are doing some of my programs, are like, can I get pushed back again? Can I get pushed back again? When should I reach out to a recruiter? And it's like, listen, give yourself at least 6 months. I say 6 to 8 months around there, and be like, get all your finances, get all of your everything that you have in order. Spend as much time with your family. Save up money, do whatever you got to do because you never know what's going to happen once you actually get in the Air Force. But save up money, just get everything in order, and then spend that 6 to 8 months training your ass off. And hey, if you, by the point where it's that far along and you're about to go in the military and you're barely passing the pass test, then you're doing something wrong, completely wrong, and you were not trying to do your best. So think about it in those terms and set yourself a time limit. If you get up to grad standards, cool. Basic training is going to be like a reset for you because it's not going to be as difficult as what you've been doing prior to showing up. So, don't push it so far back to where you're just wasting your own time. Just set your time and then go for it after you're done with that. That's kind of my take on that.
Yep, I agree.
All right. So I think that we beat a dead horse on what you should do. If you guys have questions, you can hit Peach or myself up on Instagram or wherever you want to hit us up. Email, Instagram, whatever. So let's see. What else do we have to do? Do you know if there's any more information out there on CCT, like other websites or any other places, if they want to learn more, like read more about CCT, any kind of books that you would recommend or stuff like that?
Man, I wish I had my list on me. I actually do have a list of books that I recommend.
All right. We'll put that along
Okay.
with the SDS recruiting squadron stuff on there. It was just something that popped in my head because I put, some PJ books on my website and stuff, but we'll add some CCT stuff just for guys that are interested in it.
Well, in the books that I'm thinking of are not specific to CCT. They're more of mindset books and history of SOF and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I know that a book on Chapman just came out a couple months ago. I actually haven't read it yet. I haven't gotten a chance to get my hands on it yet, but I intend to. In terms of websites, right now, I mean, I've been on the pararescue subreddit on Reddit, trying to answer questions that are kind of really, because that's funny enough that subreddit has kind of become a special warfare topic, not just PJs. So I'm trying to be as active as I can on there, but a specific website, I don't know. Admittedly, we probably don't do a great job
All right.
of doing
Coming soon to
anything.
beapj.com. All right, we'll get that fixed. We'll get you guys a resource and let you know when it's up. But we're working on more stuff also. You guys will see in the months ahead. It's coming, and you're gonna love
Ooh.
it. Yep. All right. So admittedly, we messed up the first video that we did of this. So just wanted you guys to know that this is kind of our second take at this. We asked you guys to submit some questions whenever we first did this, and Peach, I know you've been getting a lot of questions since you started the Instagram over the past month, really. So if you want to go down a couple of these questions that are kind of high yield, I don't know if you have any highlighted one off the top, and then I'll kind of go down here and look at these questions, see which ones I've been getting a lot of, and we'll just cover down there for the next couple minutes, and then we'll wrap it up. So,
Okay.
anything stick out for you?
Two in particular that, and they're just because they are high yield questions, but they're also ones that I got today. So one of them is a lot of people struggle with, and whether they're prior service or they're just coming out of college, they try and figure out if they want to go officer or enlisted, regardless of whether it's a stow, crow, or a controller, PJ, TACP. So they don't know. So to give you a little bit of gouge on the officer aspect, obviously they are officers. They get a higher paycheck. They get all the same training we do, with some minor tweaks. Like the stows and the combat controllers don't get the same air traffic control training. The crows and the PJs don't get the exact same type of medical training, right? So there's just little differences like that. I think where the major differences come in, though, is the way that we use them operationally. So an officer, and I'm primarily speaking from a stow, but I also have worked very closely with crows. So their team time is limited when it's compared to enlisted. Just because they have to go through the pipeline. So a lot of times they are first lieutenants when they get out, or maybe even captains by the time they get out of the pipeline. So they generally get put in charge of a troop commander. So then they have, between 20 and 24 guys under them that they work for. They will get to deploy. Hopefully they get to deploy and attach to a team. But that's not a guarantee, because we are a heavy on the enlisted force. Like, that's where we make our money. So generally our officers are not going to take positions from enlisted. The good thing for the officers, though, is that we are severely undermanned. So generally there is positions for officers. So we will get them JTAC training. We will, get them additional advanced skills, and then put them on a team or attached to an ODA or SEAL team or something like that. But usually their team time is pretty limited to, I'd say, 4 to 6 years, and I think 6 years is probably being generous. But and that is before they go to school for a year. Whether they go to war college or maybe they fleet up into a director of operations and stuff like that. And then as soon as they leave the team, that's pretty much it in terms of operating, whether it's a stow or a crow or a 13 Lima TACP. So the enlisted, though, is Man, since I left the pipeline, and maybe I'm an anomaly, I don't know, but since I left the pipeline, I've been operating for quite a long time. And now, if you count my instructor gig at Nellis, which is not your typical instructor gig, then yeah, then I took a break. But then I went right back at it. I didn't have my first staff position until I was already 19 years in, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
Um, so, like I said, maybe I'm lucky, but the amount of team time that you will have as an enlisted guy versus an officer is significant. You'll get to go to more schools, more training events, and if you think so, we hold. I say we, the soft community, and the way the conventional community looks at SOF is we hold our officers, our junior officers, and our senior officers, and we hold our junior enlisted and our senior enlisted at a very high regard. So, I mean, we attach E4s to SEAL teams to go do business out there, and we put a lot of trust into those guys, and it's not misplaced trust. Like it is correctly placed where it needs to be. Um, we hold our people. The soft community holds our people at a higher standard. We inherently trust them more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I know it was kind of a tangent on officer enlisted, but our enlisted hold about the same amount of weight, if not more, than our officers do, depending on who they're talking to.
Yeah, and I think that's an important distinction because just like you were describing with the phone earlier, each person sees a different side of the puzzle. Actually, the officer may be the one talking to it, and the controllers over here or the enlisted guys over here telling them what to say because they're the ones that have their ear to the ground. They're the ones that are downrange. They're the ones that have all the info on what's going on. And at that point, an officer's job is to make sure that the dudes are taken care of because the guys don't have the time to go fight those kind of battles. They got to be fighting the battles that are out there in the war zone and stuff like that. So
Yep.
I think it's an important distinction to make that we have to have a certain amount of respect for each other. And again, working in those small teams and going through the pipeline together, like we did with our stows and crows that we went through. A lot of times officers, attached to the guy with the most experience, especially when they first get on team, and that guy just kind of whispering some things like, "Hey, you should be doing this. You should be doing this," and telling them about leadership. And it's not because we disrespect the officer; we want them to grow, but we realize that anybody that's getting thrown into the fire without any lifelines, they're gonna get eaten alive without the correct, not just supervision, but mentorship and that
Yep.
kind of thing. So that's all just part of the community, and that's part of why we're here is hopefully we can start the mentorship early, and you guys can see really what it takes to be successful, kind of what to expect as far as if you're getting yourself into this stuff. This is what it's going to be like. You need to be able to think on your feet. Even when I was an E4, I was sent downrange with whoever, with another controller, and out in the middle of nowhere in Europe or deployment or wherever. And I was a young kid, and of course, you want to have fun and everything, and do all those things that are fun. But again, the unit is trusting you, and those guys that you're with are trusting you to do your job. So everyone takes it seriously, and that's why we spent, in total with I don't know, at least 3 or 4 years getting ready for that. If you're including the civilian time that I spent training to get into that, so you plan and try and train for this moment to be able to be there, and then one wrong move, you screw it up. So you got to take it all seriously, and that's why we got to trust not only our young guys, but all the way up the chain. I mean, you've been doing it for forever now, but we still have a lot of fun. It's not like it's all doom and gloom. We have fun with whatever we got to do. We get the job done, and then we go party. Like same level. So
Yeah.
maybe not as much anymore now that we're older, but
So the other thing that I get, or I got today and get fairly frequently is family life. So family life, my wife and I have been married for, this is a test right here, Um,
Don't let her watch this part.
yeah, we're approaching 14 years. We've been together for 16 years. Um, and just like any marriage, you go through ups and downs, right? But um, I have, yeah, if you look historically, but across the soft career field, but it's also probably in the military. We have a high divorce rate, right? But you have to find a spouse that is self-reliant and able to be on their own. Because, I mean, when you and I were in England, we were gone anywhere between 180 and 200 days out of the year. Now that's on the high end, and that was unusual because the unit was very small and it was going through a transition. But um, I mean, I still relied on my wife and my kids to be able to handle things without me. So were there difficult times with that? Yeah, absolutely. I'd be lying if I said that there weren't. But it also made those times that I would come home even that much sweeter. And so, is it doable? Yeah. Is it a terrible life? No, not at all. And I would think that you could probably ask some of the spouses as well on what they thought, and you're probably going to get a different answer depending on the day of the week in terms of you know is their husband gone or not. But I think in general they wouldn't have it any other way either.
Yeah, and I think part of that is just that our wives have to buy into what we're doing a little bit. They have to believe in the things that we're doing, see the impacts. So, I mean, not immediately. We're not gonna, when we're downrange, say, "Oh, guess what I did today," or anything like that. Which the conversations always get really boring when you're downrange because you're always like, "Yeah, I had chicken and salad, and then me and Jared went to the gym twice, and then we, took off, flew a couple times, and then came back." And it's like, okay, what else are you doing? Like, I can't really talk about it.
Can't tell you. Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, it's good once you come home, just decompress. Tell them like, yeah, it felt really good to go do my job, go work, and do this, and tell them how much you miss them. As much as I could. When on my first couple deployments, we didn't have as much access and Wi-Fi and stuff like that. But now, a lot of places you go, they have at least a little egg, or they have little things like that where you can at least keep in touch or send a message saying, "Hey, I'm good to go. Like, no issues today." So you can at least ease their mind and let them know that things are okay for the day and you're still alive and everything. So, and that little bit of keeping contact helps them a lot, like mentally. But in addition to that, I think, like I said, they need to be able to buy into what you're doing and believe in the same mission. Because especially if you're just coming into this and you're like an older guy, you have your life set up and everything. If they don't believe in the mission that you're about to do and seeing the sacrifices that you're making, putting your body through torture and going to the pool all the time, doing all that stuff, if they're not buying into it now, then you have to reconsider where you're going to be at and what your goals are. What outweighs what right there. And if you have
Yep.
kids, then you have to really take a good hard look because you're going to be gone, and that's what it's going to be like. There's no ifs, ands, or ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't know. It's a little bit later, and then I getting a little bit tired. It's all good. So anyway, just make sure that you have that long, hard discussion with your spouse, and you just talk it out, figure out what's important to you guys, and where your vector is going to be at in life, and
Hmm.
see what your priority is there.
Yep, absolutely right.
And that's one of the other things that I was looking on here. A couple of the other guys were asking, like, what do you think about having an older candidate versus a younger candidate?
Oh,
So, what are your thoughts on that?
so yeah, my thoughts are by no means scientific, but
Yeah.
I personally I think that because I actually did have somebody hit me up that said they were 30 or 31 and they thought that was too old. And I'll tell you what, when I was 30, 31, and I went through the pipeline with some of the guys that were in their 30s, and when I was 30, 31, like I felt like I was in my prime. I was never I was stronger than I had ever been. I was faster than I had ever been. Um, obviously I was not as quick to recover as 18-year-old Peaches, But even then, I was still able to recover, and I was able to perform um, just as well as any of the younger guys. And in fact, now, just because I take care of myself, I'm still able to perform just as good as the other guys, the young guys right now. So I'm just fortunate in that way, and I put in hard work. But for the older guys, and I'd say still do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to like, maybe you tried when you were younger, and then you're like, well, I'll come back to it. And just the older you get, it's not gonna get easier. It's not. It's just your mindset changes, your discipline changes, and that's what made him, 31-year-old Peaches stronger than 18-year-old Peaches, is because since he was 18, he had that mindset because he's been in the career field around other dudes that he was competing against, and put in that discipline day in day out, deployment after deployment, TDY after TDY, you put in, and then you get the same amount out. So
Yep.
that's the only thing that I see made him stronger. And I'm kind of the same way. I can go out there and still perform, even if I take a couple of days off. I can still like perform whatever kinds of things I need to do because my body's used to it. Like, oh, here we go again. My body's like, let's do it. May have a couple more aches and pains than I used to a little bit, but still, once I get into fight mode, then it's fight mode, and it's like screw all that stuff. It's time to perform. Let's get this stuff done. So
Yep.
once you train your mind to do that, then you continue on and you carry that with you throughout the rest of your life, whatever it's going to be. Even if your bones and muscles don't agree with it, your mind's going to force yourself to do those kinds of things. So again, with guys that are a little bit older, depending on your exposure and how much stuff you put yourself through, that's going to kind of determine where your output level and your threshold is going to be. Are you a guy that has been sitting on your butt until you are 35 years old and you're like, you know what, I'm going to change it? It's going to be a lot harder for you than other guys.
Oh yeah.
And then the other important thing for guys that are coming in and being older, like as far as quitting, from my perspective as an instructor, that same mental strength comes into play because you kind of make your decision when you're a lot older and you're like, I'm going to do this. So most of the time, you don't have a lot of guys that quit that are older because they know that other guys are relying on them, and they're just made their decision. They're like, I can't go back to my family, or I can't go back to my job and tell them I quit, or I can't go back to whatever other things because you left for a reason. If you're 30 years old, you have at least some kind of a career that you had going on, and you left that career. You don't want to go back with your tail between your legs saying that you quit. So
No.
at a certain point, you kind of, you know, throw all your cards in, and whatever comes out,
Yep.
even if you break your legs. So that's kind of what I see from the older guys. With the younger guys, they're like, I could probably just go do this and then come back, or I could probably just go work for my dad, or I could probably just go. They have all these
Yeah.
avenues that they can quit and have an out, still be successful. So that's kind of what I see from older dudes. Take or leave it, just my 2 cents.
Nope. I would agree with that.
All right. Were there any other questions that were burning in your inbox? I guess.
Um, not right. Not right now. Nothing that sticks out to me directly that I haven't that was different than any other questions I've had. Um, Also, kind of opens us up to another video if need be.
Yeah, I think we are definitely going to do some more videos, possibly in another way to bring on some more people. But as far as if you guys have any other questions that are a little more specific, you guys can reach Peach over on Instagram, or myself over on Instagram. So his is Peaches CCT.
It's CCT
Oh,
Peaches. I had
CCT
to.
CCT Peaches. Dang it! Did I say it wrong the last time too?
Yeah, but I forgot to correct you.
All right, there you go. And then how to be a PJ for me. So you guys can reach us or just email me, Brian, howtobeapj.com, and we'll get your questions answered to the best of our ability. Give us a couple of days, give us some time to answer you. But I appreciate you guys watching, and I thank you, Peach, for spending
Well,
time, taking time out of your night. Hopefully, these guys learned a lot from hearing us talk, and we'll do it again sometime soon.
absolutely. Look forward to it. Thanks for having me.
All right. Catch you guys later.
All right.